Hello students, security professionals and specialists. That video lessons is based on the topic on hybrid threats in the process of the security risk management. Learning objective of that lesson is the following. First, provide knowledge about hybrid threats as a source of risk in security management process. Second, understand how to identify and analyze the risk posed to organizations by hybrid attacks. And third, be able to use risk assessment techniques according to the presented case study in the border security management. What I would like to present how the practitioners use the tool of the risk assessment in the different case and scenarios which are based by organization. In the process of the security risk management, risk assessment is the overall process of the risk identification, risk analysis, and risk evaluations. There are three elements which consist the risk assessments. Risk assessment should be conducted systematically, iteratively, and collaboratively, drawing on the knowledge and views of the stakeholders. It should be used the best available information. The purpose of the risk identification to find, recognize, and describe risk that might help to prevent an organization achieving its objectives. The purpose of the risk analysis is to comprehend the nature of the risk and its characteristics, including the level of the risk. Risk analysis involves a detailed consideration of resources, consequences, likelihood, events, scenarios, controls, and their effectiveness. And the third step of the risk assessment process is risk evaluations, which are purpose of that is to support decisions making. Risk evaluation involves comparing the results of the risk analysis to determine where additional action is required. Currently, the organization is faced by various threats, and today threats became as a source of a risk. To define in that context the risk, what is the risk? Risk is effect of uncertainty and objectives. We see there are three components consist the content of the risk. First of all is effect. Effect, it means a deviation from the expected. It can be positive, negative, or both, and can be addressed, created, or result in the opportunities and threats. Objectives can have different aspects and categories in the context of the organization operations. It could be financial, safety, and environmental goals, and can be applied at different level: strategic level, organization-wide level, or the process level. And third component of the risk is uncertainty. That it means risk is usually expressed in terms of the risk sources, element which alone or in combination has the potential to give rise to risk, and potential event, occurrence or change of particular sets of circumstances. Event can be a source of the risk. The consequences, outcome of the event affecting positive or negative direct or indirect objectives, or combinations of this, and associated likelihood of occurrence, chance of something happening. The first step in the risk analysis is to identify the existing and possible threats that your organization might face. This can come from many different sources. For instance, they could be human, like death, injury, or other; operational, like loss of access to essential assets; reputational threats, loss of customers or employee confidence, damage to market reputation, procedural, like damage or from fraud activities, project, going over budget, taking too long on the key task, financial, like business failure, technical failure, natural, like natural disasters or disease, political, changes in the tax, government policies or foreign influences, military or environmental. There are like that possible threats which our organization might face. There are some different, in the practice, exist different tools to uncover existing and exploring possible future threats. Now I would like to present some techniques which are used by organizations. Not one alone technique that is could be applied universally by organizations. Organizations themselves decide which tool is the best for their organization activities to use for undercover existing and exploring possible threats affecting by organizations. The most popular is SWOT analysis. It means strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis. That is what's going on inside and outside your organization. SWOT analysis can help you to challenge risky assumptions and to uncover dangerous blind spots about your organization performance. Very important element in that SWOT analysis, according to the SWOT analysis, the threats could be identified. For example, what threats could harm your organization? What is your competition doing that? What threats do your weaknesses expose to you, and so on. Second tool what I used by exploring possible future threats is failure modes and effect analysis, in the acronyms FMEA. That is, helps to reviewing the existing processes or systems of the organization activities. FMEA's tool was first published in the 1949 by US Department of Defense. It builds on tools for the risk analysis in order to predict failures before they happen, and accordingly design business processes and the business systems. Third tool would also for the risk analysis. It uses PMSEPT tool, is political, military, economic, social, infrastructure, information, physical environment, and time tool for the scanning and monitoring of the risk. Also, usually is a complex strategy to manage, organize, and respond to the information that the organization receives during complex business activities. Pest analysis is a simple and widely used tool that helps organizations to analyze the political, economic, social, cultural, and technological changes in the organization business environment. For example, threats might include deregulation that exposes the organizations to intensified competitions, a shrinking market, or increase or to interest rates. Scenario analysis examines several possible situations, worst case, mostly like case, best case, and provide a range of possible outcomes. As you see, there are some different tools before starting the risk assessment process for the threat identifications. And pest analysis is often linked with the SWOT analysis. And that both tools are very, very close used by organizations in order to be complement one another, and are often used in the combinations of both in the threats analysis case. Today, the European Union member states, public and private organizations face different threats and challenges from both state or non-state actors who use hybrid activities to target political institutions, rule and order, influence public opinion, and undermine the security of EU citizens. The hybrid threat, to understand the hybrid threat phenomena, it's important to find the appropriate definitions for using the terminology in the security risk management process. In that context, hybrid threats is mixture of military or non-military, coercive and subversive activities, including disinformation, cyber attacks, terrorism, and organized crime, economic pressure, deployment of irregular armed groups or regular forces using conventional and unconventional methods, like, for example, like diplomatic, military, economic, social, technological, which can be used in the coordinated manner by state or non-state actors. Hybrid threats is very closely linked with the three components: hybrid conflict, hybrid attack, and hybrid war. And in that context, the hybrid threats should be analyzed in the security risk management process. Today, hybrid methods are used to blur the lines between war and peace, aiming to destabilize and undermine societies. The speed, scale, and intensity of the hybrid threats have increased in the recent years. Being prepared to prevent, counter, and respond to hybrid attacks is a top priority for European Union and all organizations acting on behalf of the European Union and every member state. Today, hybrid attack has different source, and that source for the security risk assessment should be evaluated in every step by the context. For example, hybrid attack has the power of the political intent, economic, terrorist, cyber, diplomatic, military, and others. And according to that, the security, it means that should be ready to respond for that hybrid attacks. And in that context, it could be used national security management program, international activities, critical infrastructure security, financial market security, media security, education, and civil society also should be like component in this security agenda. Analyzing the security risk, there are different forms exist of the hybrid attack. For example, terrorism, cyber attacks, organized crime, space, instrumentalized migration, disinformation, nuclear, economic pressure, or covert actions like Green Man, what are used by other states. And in that context, the formula of a hybrid attack is very similar. There are some attacker and defender. Attacker also has the preparation phase to attack. In second hand, the defender also should prepare or to prevent from the attacker, and it will be done by early warning signs. And follow-up phase is very important according to this formula, that improvement of risk management process, especially in the securing for the defending the state, also should be taken in the actions for the future proactive activities by hybrid attackers. And now I would like to present one of the case from that scenarios of a hybrid threats and hybrid attacks. The case is what started 2 years ago in Eastern Europe, Eastern EU borders, and which are recognized by European Commissions like instrumentalizations of migration. And that process, instrumentalization of migrations, is risk source to EU security. And secondly, is the new form of hybrid attack to the European Union launched by Belarusian regime, instrumentalizing desperate migrants from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and targeting Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, and whole EU security. European Commission recognizes migrant crisis on the border of Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland as a hybrid attack. It was announced in the September of 2021. And the instrumentalizations of migrants is when, what it means? It's when a third country instigate irregular migratory flows into the European Union, where such actions are indicative of an intention of the third countries to destabilize Union or Member States activities, where the nature of such action is labeled to put at a risk for the essential state functions, including the territorial integrity, maintenance of law and order, or safeguarding of its national security. In the border security management process, it's very important to identify the risk. It's risk from the threat what are following by hybrid attacks. Risk in that context or in that case is described the likelihood of a threat occurring at the external borders, given the measures in place and at the international borders and within the European Union, which will affect the European Union internal security and national security of member states. As you see, there are risk is identified from the three elements: is threat, vulnerability, and impact. And according to that case, it's very important to identify a risk as a threat. Is magnitude and likelihood of the occurrence of that risk. Second is component of the border security risk management is analyze the risk. Risk analysis is the process to comprehend the nature of the risk and to determine the level of risk. Systematic examination of the security risk components to inform the decision makers. And components are three, as I mentioned it, is during the analyzing the risk is threat, vulnerability, and impact. Threat in that context is pressure that may affect the security management of the external borders and assess it in terms of their likelihood. Vulnerability is capacity of a system of the response, is risk mitigation to the threat. Is response actions is very important to manage the security risk or to manage the threats in the future and in the from the responding the hybrid attacks in that case. After that, the security functions within the border security guard services should be categorized and evaluate risk. And in that context, as you see from the example today, that agencies which are responsible for the border security guard for the external border protections, the risk category are divided in the three sections: is irregular migration, like for example clandestine entry, document fraud, information manipulation. It's risk which are very important in that category. Second category of the security risk is secondary movement and returns. And some risk is unauthorized secondary movements, submitting a second asylum application, travel restrictions, and limited capacities for first returns. And third category is cross-border crime. By this irregular border crossing or irregular migrations also arise some other threats like smuggling of illicit drugs, firearms smuggling, detections of stolen vehicles, tobacco smuggling, or trafficking in human beings. And what is very important for the border security risk management today is establish a second guidelines or standard for that agencies working in the border security management. And this guidelines is part of the security risk management standard. The Frontex agency European Border and Coast Guard Agency, they are established the common integrated risk analysis model, which are very important and it was very linked with the risk management standard. And this model established a framework for risk analysis and contribute to greater coherence in the security management of EU's external borders. And analysis based on the common integrated risk analysis model will enable border security guard services to reduce and mitigate risk where resources and capabilities are limited. For risk analysis, the four-tier access control models indicate the different domains in which analysis seek information. For example, measures in third countries, cooperation with neighborhood third countries, border control measures, and control measures within the Schengen area, including return. And in that context, it's very important to have the response and control mechanism. And in every security risk management process is the last element after the risk assessment and developing risk treatment plan. And in that case, for the fighting or countering the irregular migrations, the response and control risk were established by four elements. First of all is stronger EU external border protection, which are set common standard to all EU member states, like for example, according to the improvement the regulations of Schengen Border Code. Second is regulatory mechanism of the instrumentalizations of irregular migration and other threats of a hybrid nature, and that response actions is very clear, visible in the new European Union Migration and Asylum Pact. Third response and control risk actions is stopping the abuse of common European asylum system. It means that the EU member states and their organizations addressing situations of crisis, surge in the migration flows, or force majeure. And fourth is financial support for the border protection, reception, relocations, and deportations. As today is very visible, there are a lot of countries, especially in the Eastern EU borders, that are built with physical barrier, put a new video surveillance system, worm detectors, and other to control the risk from the hybrid attack in that irregular migration aspect. And summarizing of that case and summarizing that how to manage the hybrid threat as using by risk management tool, it's very important that risk assessment of the hybrid threat should produce recommendations for the decision makers. It depends. If we speak about public sector organizations, it's political decision, is for the ministries of interiors or for border security guard services. If we speak about business companies, is decision makers is who are doing business in the protected of the state borders. It could be top managements of the business companies. And these recommendations should be based on developing and implementing measures to address the security risk. And these measures should prevent risk from the materializing or mitigating the impact from the future threats. And today, each member state is encouraged to establish and maintain risk analysis capacities in the form of a unit. And function of the risk analysis capacity is to implement common integrated risk analysis model by ensuring the acquisition of data, the application of the risk assessment methods, the provisions of the proper tools for the border security risk management. As you see, that the security team or security unit is the main specialized professionals within the organization who has the roles and responsibilities in the response of the hybrid threats according to the security risk management process in the organization. So, thank you for your attention.